Okay, can everybody see that all right?
Looks good.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to start out a little bit before we go into actual breeds, but this is my particular choosing for the top 10 breeds for backyard flocks. There are so many breeds out there and available. And actually, before I get started, Britt, I just wanted to make sure this is being recorded.
Yep, we're recording.
Awesome. All right. So selecting your egg layers depends a lot on what you want to do because they do have different personalities, just like humans and other livestock out there. So let's get started. So an egg layer breed, like I said before, there's several different types of egg laying breeds as well as meat breeds, and even some that are dual purpose breeds, and we'll talk about a couple of those today. But these particular breeds are specifically bred for the purpose of laying eggs, either to hatch out chicks for the next generation or to consume those eggs as nutrition for humans. So there are lots of different options and things that help to make a great layer, but other than the breed you really need to have for any animal, any chicken that you have around your house, some good nutrition, a good egg layer diet. It can be a crumble or a pellet, just depends on your preferences. I've heard people say that the pellet is less messy, they don't waste it as much. I prefer pellets. Just because I feel like they can pick at that gradually through the day and they're not having to work so hard to break up that pellet before they swallow. You're not going to have any eggs laid without feed or water. Always having water out is the most important thing for those birds. They can't create that actual egg yolk, albumin, this egg sac, or any of that nature without having that water in their diet. So I always have an inside water in the coop, and mine like to free range, so I have a water outside the coop so they don't have to go as far to get water where they need it. They also tend to grab water out of puddles after rains, things like that. Of course, with laying birds, if you want to be able to find your eggs, a nesting box is an important part of your equipment to have in your coop. Excuse me, I'm going to cough for a second. Nesting boxes allow for those hens to be comfortable and find a good spot to lay their eggs and feel comfortable enough to leave those eggs to go back out and forage in the grass or eat food and drink more water so that they're ready to lay another egg maybe the next day. Light is something that you can use to your advantage. Of course, we know that this time of year when our light hours become longer, we tend to see our egg layers increase in production. And so you can take that theory and even expand and push your egg laying production later into the fall and throughout the winter by adding a light to your coop. The more light they have, up to about 13 hours, the more eggs you might be able to receive over the entire year. Now that all depends on the health of the bird, if they're molting, age of the bird, things like that, and even the breed of the bird will give you that tendency to lay more or less, just kind of depending on what their breed status is. But you can try that. Light is a good thing. Some people don't like to push their birds and allow them a chance to rest during the winter. I don't particularly have electric in my coop, so I can't do that, but that's something I would like to try to do should I be able to get electric into my coop at a later date. Chickens like to roost and get off the ground in the evening and overnight to sleep. If they're not broody and sitting in those nest boxes on eggs, they're going to roost on something, whether that's a door, a fence post, a tree, something of that nature. So if you've got an enclosed coop area that's their safe space, allowing them a spot to roost will mean they'll come back to that coop and sleep in that safe coop area all night long. And you'll find that they're going to be much more comfortable, less stressed, and things of that nature. When you're building your coop and thinking about where to place those animals, a windbreak is an important thing. A windbreak can be a side panel on your coop. You could have it up next to a barn or another building. In my coop, it is a 3-sided structure with the open side, which has a chicken wire siding towards the south. And then the east, west, and north sides all have a solid tin layer around it. And then, of course, a nice, good grounding. And I even deep mulch in the winter just to make sure that they've got good heat and they're holding in that heat and staying fairly warm. It also helps because I don't have electricity. I can't bring a heater out to my barn. And so if I've got it deep bedded, that little extra heat from the compost actually helps to reduce the amount of water that I have to break ice from over the winter. Okay, so when you get your chicks, usually they're coming at a day old, 2 days old. If you're ordering online, purchasing from Tractor Supply, maybe up to a couple of weeks old. You may be able to find some chicks this time of year from neighbors. There's a Facebook group that is a hen and chick group that you can purchase or even trade chicks, pullets, hens, roosters, anything of that nature. And so those kinds of different options are out there. But you might start seeing the words chicks versus pullets, pull hens, laying hens. And so what does that mean? Of course, a baby chick is definitely not ready to lay an egg. Pullets are very young hens, and pullet is specific to a female. And they're going to be too young to still be laying. And a lot of times this is a good value because your baby chicks tend to be a little bit more stressed. Sometimes they can get sick and maybe harder to keep alive. Pullets are a little hardier. They've gotten the system down to eat and drink every day. They've gotten used and comfortable to free ranging if that's something that they've been doing in their life so far. They're probably part of the flock. They've figured out the pecking order. And so they're ready to kind of have that lifestyle in preparation for starting to lay their eggs. Now, a pull hen is one that's about 22 weeks, and depending on the breed, they may be laying eggs, and they're going to be very small eggs, almost like a Bantam size egg if you've got a standard breed, but they will start to lay some eggs. They're not going to be regular every day, and they're going to be of different sizes, shapes, and even thickness of the shell as their body is starting to standardize and get them prepared for a regular laying schedule. Actual laying hens are considered at least a year old, and they're going to be in full production of laying eggs probably on a daily basis, if not every other day. So when you get your chicks home, your pullets home, we talked about a coop area, we talked about free ranging. So what is the best option for your bird? Of course, there's going to be differences between breeds and what they're comfortable with as far as their stress level, but I highly, highly recommend having a space that they can go to in a coop, somewhere where you can close them in, catch them if you need to, whether they be sick, hurt, you're getting ready to sell some, you're adding new ones to the group. There may be some issues with a predator in the area. You want to be able to bring those guys in and have a safe space they can get to, that nothing can get to them and hurt them or kill them. Free ranging is wonderful. It reduces the amount of feed that you have to give them. I keep a free offering of layer diet out in their coop every day. I don't feed them anything really outside other than maybe a few scraps here and there if I've got some things left over from cutting up vegetables from dinner. But the free ranging gives them the chance to go out and peck through the grass, find some good grubs and worms and things like that that they're looking for. And they'll kind of help reduce your tick levels. Guineas are really good at that. But your chickens will also help with some of your basic pests, insect pests in your yard. I had some ants that were causing some damage in my yard when I first moved in. And in about 4 years, my chickens have pretty well reduced the amount of ants that have been damaging my yard. And so I have found them to be very helpful in that perspective. So free ranging can help not only for them, but it can also help for you in making it more comfortable for you to enjoy your backyard space. So let's get to my top 10. We'll start from the top at number 10 and go down to my favorite bird. So number 10, Rhode Island Red. And I'll tell you, this is one that I don't prefer to have in my flock on a regular basis, but I do have to give them credit because they are a very hardy bird. They are bossy. They tend to stand their ground against new birds, different birds, which means if you've got a more docile breed, they tend to peck at them and be head of the pecking order, shall we say, and maybe even a little too bossy to where they could do some harm. They do lay quite a few eggs. 260 eggs per year is quite a bit. So they're not every day, but almost every day. These are a bird that if you put a light on them, they're definitely going to be pushed, and they're going to be able to spread out those egg laying capabilities. They don't tend to be really broody, so just depending on if you're interested in hatching out live chicks, maybe once a year or something of that nature, your Rhode Island Reds aren't really going to get real broody, so they're not going to be a choice for you. If you're collecting eggs to sell at a farmer's market or to eat yourself, this is probably a good option for you because you're going to have a regular set of eggs. They're going to be there, they're going to be pretty healthy, and they're going to stay off those eggs and not cause you any problems trying to collect those eggs every day. The mature weight is about 6.5 pounds, which is average for a layer. It's maybe a little bit small if you were to want to eat this bird once it gets a little bit older, so I wouldn't consider it a dual purpose breed, but you certainly could. I have butchered some of my older Rhode Island Reds, and it makes for a good stock chicken to make chicken noodle soup or anything where you're going to pull that meat off and use it in another dish. Probably not good for like a roasting chicken. They do start laying at 18 to 24 weeks of age, so they're going to be in that pullet to pull hen range where they start to lay, but remember still it's going to be that smaller egg and not every single day. For a free-ranging chicken, this is a good option. Again, the hardiness, they're very comfortable and independent in their surroundings, and so they're going to go out and free range and not be scared easily by their surroundings. Number 9 is the Leghorn. I added this because it is a very hardy breed as far as laying eggs. Again, it's a 280 egg per year breed. This one actually has a white egg. It's the only one on my list with a white egg. And it is the preferred breed to do our crosses in your commercial laying hen barns. They tend to be nervous and a little bit more flighty. They like to be a little bit more warm, which lends themselves to be happier in a coop. They will free range, they will be comfortable, but they're going to be the ones that your Rhode Island Reds are going to push around a little bit, and they're not going to lay if they're not comfortable. And so making them a little happier, having them a little warmer, building up their bedding, or even adding some heat or extra insulation to make their coop warmer might actually make them a little happier. So that's just kind of part of what you have to look at when you want to purchase something like this. They are not broody. Again, another reason why commercial egg laying facilities use this breed in their breeding programs and for their regular egg layers. Their 5-pound mature weight is pretty light, and so again, it's not going to be a great dual purpose breed. However, it does start laying at 16 to 17 weeks, and so you're going to get an egg earlier, and it'll be a good addition to your group of chicks purchased in maybe a spring lot, as you'll get those a little earlier than some of the other chicks in a lot of hens or chicks that you're purchasing. Number 8 is a New Hampshire Red. This is a brown laying egg layer. They're going to have about 200 eggs per year, so they're a little lighter, a little less on that egg laying capacity. And just like the Rhode Island Reds, they're going to be a little bit more competitive and aggressive to those other breeds, but they tend to not be too aggressive towards humans. They are a lot more broody. They're very broody, in fact. And so if you're looking for a breed that would allow for you to hatch out some chicks without using an incubator, this is a great option. You'll probably even be able to add extra eggs to their nests and hatch out some different breeds even past and beyond the New Hampshire Red if that's something you're looking into. Another 6.5 pound mature weight, and they do start laying at that 18 to 21 weeks, very similar to the Rhode Island Red. And they're okay to free range or in a coop. You can see from this picture, it's maybe a little bit stockier built hen instead of that Rhode Island Red that looks a little bit more sleek. And this one would be considered more of a dual purpose breed. Of course, unlike the Cornish hens or the crosses of those natures, it's probably not going to have that huge breast you're looking for or a large roasting whole chicken, but it's going to give you the opportunity to repurpose those hens after they've quit laying for you so that they can give more to your family if that's something you're interested in looking into. Number 7 is the Australorp. I just got my first Australorp, and I'm really appreciating this breed more than I thought I would. Brown egg layer, and they will lay about 250 eggs per year, so they're going to keep up with our Rhode Island Reds, our Leghorns, and some of our other ones. They're pretty hardy, and they can be bossy to the other breeds, and so this new Australorp is actually higher in my pecking order than I had expected, but she's pretty friendly to me and my young son, who likes to go in there and help me collect eggs and feed and bring water to them. These ladies are not broody at all, so they're going to be easy to collect eggs from, and their 5 to 7 pound mature weight allows them to be another option for a dual purpose breed. They will start laying a little bit later at 22 to 24 weeks, and I believe these eggs are a little bit bigger, noting the differences in my other layers that I had previously. And this one will free range and will be in a group. They like to be with another chicken. I never see this one off on her own like I do sometimes with like my Wyandottes and my Americanas. Orpingtons. Orpingtons are just a super friendly, very nice, fluffy hen to have in your group. They are just so chill. My son can go up and pick my Orpingtons up and carry them around, pet them. They don't bother him. They kind of get out of his way if they don't want to be bothered. They're going to lay a brown egg, and this is a typo. It should be 150 to 200 eggs per year. So they're going to be a little bit lower on the egg laying production side. However, they're not broody, and that friendly personality just really makes up for them on that part. The 6 to 8 pound mature weight, even though it looks super fluffy, they still have a lot of that body weight in there, does allow for them to be a dual purpose weight, so or dual purpose breed per se. So you can kind of see, if you've been thinking about what I've told you on what my breeds are that I have. I've got Orpingtons and an Australorp, and we've got a couple of other ones. Many of the ones I choose are dual purpose breed because in our family, that's what I choose to do at the end of their egg laying cycle. We will harvest them and then use them in our dinners later on down the road. The Orpington is a somewhat medium aged at 19 to 24 weeks and does like to be in a coop, likes to be kind of in an enclosed area. And so my Orpingtons tend to stay closer to the coop. They tend to stay together or with a rooster and don't stray too far unless the entire flock goes. Then they'll go with the flock. They don't like to get wet. They're actually pretty funny. When they feel the first raindrop, they're the first ones to go back into the coop, and they kind of sound the alarm for everyone else to get in and out of the rain and stay dry. Wyandottes. These are probably my absolute favorite as far as color goes, and I enjoy a Wyandotte. There's so many different colors. There's the laced Wyandottes, speckled kind of Wyandottes. This one in particular is a blue laced red Wyandotte. There are black laced Wyandottes. There's so many different breed color and characteristics. You can enjoy several different kinds and bring out different colors depending on what you prefer. As a brown egg layer, this one's a little lower on the list at 200 eggs per year. However, again, it's a gentle and calm animal. They're really easy and easygoing around my son. I enjoy that they're not broody and that he can go in and grab eggs if he's helping me during a day. And they are a good hearty 6 pounds at their mature weight. And so we could use these as a dual purpose breeds, and more than likely in our flock, that's what they'll end up being once they quit laying. But they did start laying at about 18 to 20 weeks. And so that was a good surprise when I was looking up this breed and not knowing a whole lot about them. Once I purchased my young pullets and got them going, I realized quickly that they were going to start laying, and got them prepared and comfortable enough to start doing their jobs. And we found that these ladies are the free range queens. I have a chicken netting up, and I kind of move my chickens around my yard so that they can help me with clipping grass, cleaning out ant piles and things of that nature. And this one will be the one that flies over that chicken netting and takes off and does her own thing. She loves to be out in free range, and she is the last one in the coop at the end of the day. Another one of my favorites, just because of their look and their personality, they are the Americana, or something more commonly known as the Easter egger, and they lay that blue to green colored egg. And I've seen these girls all kind of from the same hatchery lay all different colors of blue to green. And so the range is pretty neat to see. We sent some of these eggs to my son's daycare so that they could decorate already colored eggs, and that was a real treat for them. So we were excited to be able to offer that this year. They do lay about 250 eggs per year, so they keep up with those hardy egg layers. And they tend to be a pretty calm bird. However, I put in here that part of the behavior is sneaky. They're the ones that if they find anything that looks like a nest, they're going to use it. In fact, I was a little worried that my Easter eggers were not laying enough, or not laying at all, and I was going to have to start watching and seeing maybe which ones were not going to be laying so that I could move them on or have a different purpose for them. Well, lo and behold, I found a lovely batch of 16 beautiful blue eggs in the corner of a horse stall, and found out that they were very happily laying eggs. They just found their own spot and they were doing their own thing. These girls do tend to be broody, and so they're ones that if they're on the nest boxes in the mornings when we're collecting eggs, we just leave them and go back later on that day and don't bother them. You can pick them up. I tend to use gloves and pick them up. They're not as mean as maybe some of the other ones. They'll just kind of fly right off, but I just don't want to take chances and get hurt by them pecking me. They are a lighter weight bird. They do actually lay a lighter size or a smaller sized egg. So that 4.5 to 5.5 pound mature weight means I'm not going to get a whole lot of meat off of them, and I'm not going to use them as a dual purpose breed. They'll more likely be pets until we do something new with them or somebody else is interested in having them as a pet. They do start laying a little bit later at 25 to 30 weeks, and so that they can be a little frustrating if you're getting a bunch of them. You expect all of them to start laying at the same time. These guys are going to be, number one, sneaky, so they're going to run off and find a new nest spot rather than the one that you prepared for them. And they're going to start laying later. And so you're going to think there's something wrong with them, but really it's just that breed and the way they are. They will free range, but again, if you like to play hide and seek, go ahead. I do allow mine to free range. I know where they're laying. I'm not too worried about it. I've got plenty of eggs that if I miss a few, as long as they don't get cracked and rotten, I'm not too worried about it. But if you're looking to collect many blue-green eggs, if that's something that maybe a customer is looking for, it might be better keep them in the coop so that you know exactly where they are laying and how many they are laying every day. A really nice breed that has been crossed and brought up is the Sexlink, and it is a crossbreed between a couple of these breeds that we've been talking about today. I know Rhode Island Red is one of them, and then I think it just depends on the coloring as to what the other cross is. But these guys are pretty cool in that they are going to be up there in that high laying range of 250 to 300 eggs. They are pretty gentle and quiet and do not tend to be broody, and so they're going to be a nice egg laying option as far as high production, easy to grab, clean, and sell if that's something you're looking into. What's really cool about your chicks is that they are easy to sex, and that's why they're called Sexlinks. On the black ones, they have a yellow stripe across their head if they're a female, and they're completely black if they're a male. And so these are super nice to have if you're looking specifically to purchase just pullets. They have a 5 to 7.5 pound mature weight, and so these guys are going to be good to go back into that stock pot at the end of their production cycles. And they start laying at 15 weeks of age, which is really great to keep up production and keep up with the rest of my breeds. We free range these, and they do pretty well in either a free range option or a coop option. And so just depending on what your setup is, these guys would do great either way. Barred Plymouth Rocks tend to be a very popular option for laying eggs or laying breeds, and they lay a peach to light brown egg in color, and it's about a medium, sometimes a large size egg. They'll lay 280 eggs about per year, and so they're up there in that higher range of egg layers, and a great option if you've got kids around. They're pretty calm, they aren't too skittish around kids, and they'll let them create pets out of them if that's something you're choosing for them. They're not broody, and so again, they're going to be easy for those kids to be able to go in and maybe help you to collect eggs from. We have these set at a 6.5 pound mature weight. So again, a dual purpose if you would like. Not on the list of dual purpose breeds, but it's an absolute option. They can start laying at about 18 to 22 weeks. And so again, a good option for that high production layer if that's what you're looking for. They love to free range, and they are great foragers. In fact, the ones that I have had in the past have decimated my garden, and I've had to actually pen them out of the garden rather than trying to keep them penned in the chicken fence. And number one on my list, and one that I am looking to get this year, is the Speckled Sussex. They are really cool looking colored, and there's some other Sussex colors, white Sussex, black Sussex, that are available. But these suckers have a brown egg, like very many others on our list. They're going to be a high production layer of 250 to 300 eggs per year. They are docile. I really like those docile animals. These are curious. They're going to be looking around. They may even come up to you and want to know what's going on. They're not broody whatsoever. And they've got that 7 to 8 pound mature weight. These guys are going to make a really great dual purpose meat bird for the end of their laying production years. They start laying at 16 to 20 weeks, so they do great as a laying option and can do coop or free range. So this is a breed that I'm excited to start looking into a little bit more this year, and think that it's going to be a good addition to the mix of girls that I already have. So I'd like to just maybe bring up a couple other points before we end today. And this was a really quick presentation, and I do apologize. I just wanted to talk about disease management. Diseases can come with those chicks if you are purchasing from a farm or a hatchery that does not guarantee disease-free. Many of the large hatcheries will ask if you would like a Merck's vaccination and guarantee for those animals to be disease-free when you receive them in the mail. I highly recommend that you do get that vaccination for them. It's a once in a lifetime vaccine that they get. And I have had more luck keeping healthy birds and keeping birds alive if I know that they're vaccinated and that they're coming to me from a guaranteed free, clean and free of disease coop. Now, the ones that I've purchased from people around my area, I've had some problems with them getting sick, coccidiosis, and bringing that into the group, and something I've had to manage. And coccidiosis is something that you tend to see in the spring in stressed animals. Young animals can get that a lot. You can do a feed-through antibiotic or a water-through antibiotic that's just added to either their feeder or their waterer. And being a small animal, they're not going to take a whole lot of it, and it'll only go through a couple of days. The other thing I would recommend on that status, if you do get coccidiosis in your flock, is to completely clean out your nest boxes and from your flock completely. And then once they're done with their antibiotic, they have clean, fresh bedding and clean nest boxes to start using again, and they're not reintroducing that to their systems. The other thing is to clean and keep their waters clean so that they're not drinking dirty water, drinking after maybe some of them have defecated in that, because I tend to see that often, that they're standing on top of the water and just defecating right into the water. So I have to clean those out on a regular basis. If you find that you have attracted maybe some different insects or mice, rats, or other rodents, find ways to keep them out of the feed, out of the water, and just removing them from the coop area as much as possible. And I know there's that saying goes that if you have chickens or feed, you will have rats. But please keep up with managing their numbers, because the more you have, the more sickness you'll see. Of course, deterring them is very hard to do, so trapping them is probably the best option. I would not suggest using poisons, as chickens do actually like to eat baby rats if they find them, or small mice, field mice if they do find them. And so if they ingest that poison, of course, then you've now poisoned your birds. So that kind of lends into, where do I find birds? You can find them anywhere. And like I said at the beginning, there's Facebook groups that you can find to find different types of breeds. You can purchase from hatcheries, which then are reputable. They've got guaranteed disease-free flocks. They offer vaccinations, guaranteed live bird delivery, and tend to be a very good option. There's always Tractor Supply and Orscheln's that have their spring chick days. Those guys sometimes are just not the healthiest, but if you get there kind of on the first or second day and they're still of good, bright eyed and they're moving around, you might be lucky in keeping those fairly healthy. Again, you may need to consider watching for some of those diseases and use your disease management. When you start with new chicks, as soon as you get them home, the very first thing you need to do is show them water, show them food, and get them to start eating and drinking immediately. A stressed bird will not eat or drink. And when they've traveled many, many miles overnight in a box, maybe a little bit cold, just depending on the type of year. I know it was 28 degrees here this morning when I woke up, and so a bird being shipped in that type of conditions, even in a boxed up container next to 500 of their best friends may get a little bit cool. So getting them out of the box, and I always take the chicks and actually dunk their beaks in the water and dunk their beaks in the food so they know exactly where it is. And I'm pretty high on the amount of birds that immediately jump in and start eating and start drinking as soon as I do that, rather than just setting them in my brooder boxes and just letting them figure it out on their own. So those are some suggestions and ideas that I've kind of come up with for you as far as purchasing your egg layers. And I am free to, or I would like to open up this time to ask questions if you have any. And Britt, if you've got any in the chat box for me to answer, I'll certainly do that now. I don't see any questions in the chat box. If you would like to ask any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself. Any thoughts on golden comets? Golden comets, I think, are a good option. Again, they're going to be very similar to maybe those Rhode Island Reds or Red New Hampshires. Or New Hampshire Reds, rather, excuse me, and that they tend to be maybe a little bit more broody, but they're going to be a very good egg-laying option. They should, I can't remember, but I do believe they're up in the 200s on their laying production. They're a green, or rather a brown egg. I think it's about a medium size, maybe a large egg. I've got a couple of them out there new this year that are pullets, so I have not seen them lay in particular, but I do see them being a good addition to my flock. They don't seem to be as abrasive or mean to the other birds as I've seen previously with my Rhode Island Reds, so it may be a good option over some of those other more aggressive breeds. Any other good questions out there? Thank you, John. While you're typing in, just to let you know, our next Lunch and Learn is going to be on fencing, and this is going to be on types of fencing, how to do some fencing, and this will be for different livestock species, not just, you know, maybe cattle or something of that nature. It'll be several different ones. So feel free to put that on your calendar, and we'll use the exact same link as we did for today, and we can even send out reminders for this.
Actually, I have another question.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. So we're only going to have we have 3 chickens right now. They're different, 3 different kinds. Is there any rule of thumb, say if we wanted to have 6 or less, to have similar species of chickens or different, or, I mean, is there any rule of thumb there when you're dealing with a small flock?
I don't think so. Honestly, that's kind of how I started. I chose some after doing some research, similar to kind of what we talked about today, and looking at capacity of laying, behaviors, and what you're comfortable with. I have a young child, and so I wanted something that was a little bit more docile. So those were the things I chose. And so we've gone through, I bet I've gone through 6 different breeds before I've come up to, I really like Brahmas because of their nature. So I've got a Brahma rooster because I don't have any need to have any hens at this moment. I really like the Easter eggers because they are fun to watch, the color of the egg. And then those docile breeds like the Wyandottes and the Orpingtons that my son can handle were good choices for us. But we just kind of came across that by trying something new. every year. And so I've just kind of I tend to get like 5 to 10 of a breed, or 5 of one and 5 of another every year, and just watch them and see. And so I've kind of come up with my list and my preferences by doing some mixing of different breeds, and just seeing what works well together.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.